Okay, I guess we can begin with some introductions, and as people come in, again, this will be recorded. So if your neighbors ask, please let them know that it will be uploaded so that everyone can have the opportunity to listen in and find out more about our NJTSS framework. So again, I just want to remind others that there's other presentations going on. Mr. Bing's book study and Dr. Antone and Mr. Sanchez are doing a course selection and career pathways presentation. Theirs also will be recorded and uploaded. So if you are choosing one or the other or want to bounce back, just know that both mine and Dr. Antone's and Mr. Sanchez's presentations will be uploaded to our website so that parents can easily access that information, so you don't feel that you need to compete between both presentations. And of course, Mr. Bing will have book study notes as he usually releases with our communications director, Ishaya Draper. So stay tuned for those if you're interested in the book study. So I just want to get us started. Good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Dr. Zoila Correa, and I serve as the Director of Curriculum and Instruction for the South Orange Maplewood School District. And I am here with my co-panelist, Mrs. Ann Botner. She is the Assistant Superintendent of CNI, Curriculum and Instruction, and we are very happy campers in our departments, but we're always looking for ways to partner with families and just continue to do the work, look for feedback from families. We know that it hasn't always been easy, but we're really looking to open up those lines of communication and really just continue to improve on how we partner with families. So part of that is our curriculum nights. If you have seen, we started them a little bit last year. I was able to do this presentation at one of our elementary schools in person last year, but I figured this time we would do it online so it could be recorded and maybe more access for families to partake, as right now might be dinner time or just so much happening at home, work and whatnot. So we were trying a different format this evening. So thank you for joining us with that. Ms. Bonner will be also trying to keep up with the chat box if there's any questions that she may answer, she'll answer to you directly in the chat box. If not, if questions need a further development afterwards, we will create a FAQ afterwards based on the comments. We do get all the comments, so that way we can create a document for you to make sure your questions are answered. And maybe at the end, if we have some time, we could answer them right here during the webinar. But there is a lot of information, so I do want to get started. So tonight's session will provide an overview of the New Jersey Tiered System of Supports, also known as NJTSS. Our goal this evening is to help you understand what NJTSS is, why it matters, and how it supports your child academically, but also socially, emotionally, and behaviorally. Before we begin, I want to thank many parents and caregivers who completed the NJTSS survey that we recently shared with all of you. Your feedback was incredibly valuable and very honest, and I appreciate it because it helped inform both this presentation and the ongoing work that we still need to do to strengthen our communication and clarity around the supports for our students, but also our families. As you'll see throughout the slides, NJTSS is a framework for all students. It includes enrichment for students who are ready for a greater challenge, as well as targeted and intensive supports when additional assistance is needed. Tiers describe classroom levels of supports, not our students, and those supports can change depending on the need of each student. Family partnership is essential. It's an essential part of the process, and parents can request assistance at any time. Much of the information that will be shared through the slides this evening is to provide you with clarity and answer common questions about how supports work together in our district. Thank you again, and let's begin. Let's see. Okay. I hope everyone can see that. So I have my notes because I want to make sure I don't miss up anything, any information. So right off the bat, you see that here in South Orange Maplewood School District, we have multiple levels of support, our strategies, interconnected systems that really are just not for one program, but they support students all around. So this NJTSS New Jersey tiered system of supports brings together the many initiatives that families may recognize already. Maybe you receive social emotional support for your child. Maybe you've heard of INRS or GAP plans or family partnerships, teacher professional development. Maybe you've heard cultural responsiveness. So all this slide is really just showing how student success is supported by many interconnected systems and not just one program or service. NJTSS is about coordination and not addition. It is aligning what our schools already do to support our students. NJTSS is a multi-tiered system of support. So here's the overview. A multi-tiered system of support is more than just a system for intervening when students are struggling. So we need to, good, okay, that's better. Sorry. It is a process that ensures that all students are learning to their full potential by implementing high quality instruction, continuously monitoring progress, and responding to each student's needs effectively and efficiently. The NJTSS framework meets and enhances both the INRS administration code and the strengthening the gifted and talented services requirements by administration code of the New Jersey. So what is NJTSS? It's evidence-based model of schooling that uses database problem solving to integrate academic and behavioral instruction and intervention. It's a tiered system of supports that varies in levels of intensity to support the whole child. It uses data and not labels. It adjusts supports based on the student response. It's needs driven. So decision-making provides resources. It's right from the appropriate level of acceleration the students need to achieve or exceed proficiency. It's a student-centered approach. So it's based on our standards-based curriculum that New Jersey provides for us, our standards. But we use something called Universal Design for Learning Principles. UDL just ensures the accessibility and flexibility for all learners. So a student might be able to hand in an assignment, and instead of doing a typical just a test, they might do like a podcast or a video to show that they have understood the content. So it really shows more flexibility that teachers can start with a movie or like a movie bit or something to grab their attention, a story plot, reading maybe one of the stories from the middle of a book and just saying, how do we get here? It's a way of really bringing in students with many different ways. So it's not just turn to page 1, right? Really trying to capture the different types of learners we have in our classrooms. It's a school-wide process for monitoring student progress with common definitions of progress, including students who are excelling, meeting expectations, and also struggling. So why does New Jersey tiered system of supports exist? It supports the successful implementation of the whole child approach. We don't just worry about a student's academics. Yes, that is important, but we also need to make sure they're socially okay, that they're physically okay, that they're behaviorally okay. So it really looks at the student as a whole child. It aligns resources and strategies and interventions efficiently for all our students. It uses data to inform practices. It increases alignment of instruction between general and special education. It reduces special education referrals. It helps identify evidence-based interventions and practices for all our student population. It is important to note that NJTSS is not special education. Every student is part of NJTSS. Support looks different depending on the need. So here's our learning continuum, the SOMSD NJTSS learning continuum. This diagram explains the 3 tiers of levels of support, again, not categories of students. The diamond shows how NJTSS supports both intervention. On the left-hand side, you'll see the tiers for intervention, and on the right-hand side, you'll see the tiers for enrichment. Okay. Students will move between these tiers as needed. So sometimes we may have students that are academically struggling, but they're socially they're classroom leaders. They want to help the teacher. They want to help their friends. So maybe we can make them like a classroom TA or the classroom helper. But they're socially gifted. They have kids that follow them, whatever they say, they're going to be the next CEOs, maybe, right? Or leaders or political leaders or advocates, right? So we need to enrich that too. So socially, they can have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 interventions for that enrichment and exploration and development of those leadership qualities. We may also have students that are gifted academically, however, may struggle socially. And that's very common for a lot of our gifted students to struggle socially or emotionally. Often we have students that need a counseling for that emotional connection, or they may work with social groups to really build bonds and connections with students, as well as taking care of their academic needs. So this diamond method will really help show you how we can go from different tiers depending on the need of the students. And I will, through the next slides, really break down each tier, but just so you know, the foundation for this model is district and school leadership. Obviously, we need to support the resources, do the research, positive school climate and culture, having students feel heard, seen in their schools, positive classroom and hallways, supported by the personnel, right? And family and community engagement. One of the big things we're working on this year is really partnering with the family and the community. As you may have seen, Mr. Bing has done a lot of, he's created a children's cabinet. He's also done a lot of webinars like this. We've jumped on this bandwagon and also trying to do our curriculum nights, because we really want to partner with family and communities to really help students. And what resources do we have, and what better than the families that know and love our kids? So why the diamond diagram? NJTSS is often viewed as a support for students with additional learning or behavioral needs. However, a true system of support is intentionally designed to address students' need on both sides of the learning continuum. Modeling NJTSS as a diamond emphasizes both the support for struggling students as well as the extended learning for students who have already mastered content and demonstrate appropriate behavior. The flexibility of this framework allows students to move fluidly among the tiers as needed. This process is not linear, nor on a timeline. So here are the 3 tiers at a glance. So it's very important to note that the tiers describe the levels of support within the classroom. And again, not the students. You'll see that I emphasize that a lot. This support, it just is important to reiterate that tiers support the intensity of the instruction or the support and not the student's ability. Tier 1 is your daily core instruction. So whatever program we have, whatever the teacher's teaching all the students, right? That's the daily instruction. The objectives that follow are state standards for each grade level. Everyone receives that instruction. Tier 2 then becomes more targeted and short-term supports. So tier 2 may look more like a small group, and I'll get into it with each tier in the next few slides. But it's more targeted for a small group, where a teacher can really help students, partner with students that are exceeding or need intervention in the same gaps or in the same enrichment needs, right? It could be where they partner together as partners. It could be many different ways to kind of just strategize and really target more intervention. And then you have tier 3, which is your intensive individualized support. Here's where you may have a potential action plan. You may have heard of INRS action plans in the past, which is intervention and referral services. INRS still exists in our administration code, but now we cover it under the NJTSS committee. So it falls under our NJTSS framework. So we'll still be using the same concepts and the same type of support for intervention through the INR that we had with INRS, but now you'll hear about it as NJTSS. So I know some parents were concerned that we've been doing this. Well, we have done the INRS side of the NJTSS and the GAP side, or the gifted enrichment, as in silo, but now we're looking at it more as a cohesive system of supports, whole child. Okay, so let's dive into the 3 tiers. So I want to highlight first the tier 1. This is for all students. Tier 1 is the foundation of NJTSS, and it refers to the high quality instruction and supports that all students receive every day in the general education classroom. However, in that tier 1 support, differentiation can still occur. So teachers will adjust their content process, their pacing, the products to meet a range of learning needs within the classroom. So some students may need a graphic organizer, or manipulatives to understand the core instruction. So if a student is learning about counting, the teacher might say, well, let's grab a number line if you need to visually see it with the rest of the class. But again, it's based on the grade level standards for that grade. There's also enrichment. So we might have some more conceptual understanding, deep dives of performance tasks. So the grade level standard, but more real life application for students that need that extra challenge, right? Or maybe a combination of tasks that shows the current standard being learned in the classroom, and then maybe something that they have already learned and how it all combines to make that combination to answer this performance task or this project-based opportunity that teachers providing. So enrichment and extension does exist within Tier 1 for students. It's opportunities such as deeper problem solving, advanced texts, project-based learning, flexible groups, and enrichment tasks embedded in the daily instruction. Classroom-based SEL supports as well, explicit teaching of social emotional skills, positive behavior supports, routines, and relationship building practices that support all learners. In our district, a lot of our elementary schools have classroom meetings, and they have restorative circles, and they have different ways that I know that Dr. Wabel and Dr. Gilbert have worked really hard at helping teachers develop that social emotional lens and really incorporate culturally responsive ways of teaching, instruction, and different activities that they can do with the students to really feel like they belong in the classroom, that they're seen, that they're heard, that they're part of a classroom community and not just another student in the classroom. So Tier 1 is not a one-size-fits-all. It's intentionally designed to be flexible and responsive. So that's Tier 1. Tier 2 becomes more targeted. So here's where a teacher has done the Tier 1 instruction through formative assessments, has observed the class, has maybe gave a do now or an exit ticket, and realized that there were some students, and they say it's usually about 10 to 15% of the class may need, after the core instruction has been given, a little more intervention or a little bit more enrichment, right? They have mastered that high quality instruction of Tier 1. And they have now we can say, okay, well, in that small group time that the teachers have embedded in their schedules, they would go ahead and do some of those reading or math interventions, right? If it's a social studies or science lessons, and they could use CERs, which is a way of answering a question for deeper understanding. They can look at what were the prerequisites that maybe the student didn't have to access that core instruction. So let me just go back and maybe show them. So maybe they're doing a lesson on fractions, and the fraction itself numerically might have been confusing. So in that small group, let me pull out some of those manipulatives and have the students see what 1/8 looks like compared to the 1/4, right? So in that small group, it becomes a little bit more targeted to build the skill needed for the student to access that Tier 1 objective that the whole class has. Again, with social skills and small SEL small groups as well, right? We can develop that. A lot of times our social work interns provide some support with that at the school levels. They create little social groups, and in the classroom, they come in and do some fun activities. They partner with the teachers. The teachers do fun activities also through that morning meeting time that really develops that social skill. Even when they do think, pair, share, or they turn to their partner, how do we talk to our partner? How do we share our ideas? All that can be done through smaller groups if the teacher feels that the students need to develop that a little more. Check-in and check-out systems or goal setting supports is also important, really, like just small groups to check in with the student. How are you doing? How about, I say you struggled in the class, so how about you do one here, and I'll come back and check and see how it goes. Maybe a goal for a student that they want to work on, something that they feel, I didn't really understand too much what you said in the lesson, so how can then I clarify that for you? Let's talk in this small group. So key features of Tier 2 typically provided for a defined period of often 6 to 8 weeks. Teachers collect data to see how these interventions are really helping the student, how often did they need the manipulatives, how often they did need the reinforcement of a skill, right? It's delivered in addition to Tier 1. So it's important to know that Tier 1 is given to all students at all times. So it's additional to that. It doesn't mean additional work as much as it's additional support for that core that was taught. It's based on student data and specific skills and needs. We often, you may have seen that we're starting to have more data resources. Thankfully, Mr. Bing has brought some iExcel, iReady, and different ways that we can really collect that data to help us guide where our students may be, and how we can adapt the lessons and to really help their needs. It's based on the specific needs, as I said, and of course, progress monitoring is very important. And it may seem a little redundant for some, but the progress monitoring is key. How often are we seeing this? Sometimes socially, we may see habits that happen in the morning or happen more often after lunch. And it's important to record time of day, right? How many was a student able to do individually? How many were they able to do with the support of the teacher? And so on. So the teachers will then progress monitor that if they see that there's a constant need for that tier 2 targeted support. Tier 2 supports are targeted, not generic. Students are selected based on data and not labels or diagnosis. It has not to do with anything, labels, not anything to do with diagnosis. It's really based on the data for that lesson. And we'll talk about how teachers collect that data. So it's important to note that this is more of a support. So a student may be doing a lesson on informational text and language arts, and they may struggle and they may need that tier 2 intervention. However, when it comes to a different type, maybe a literature, they may love science fiction if it's a certain type of topic, and then they may need enrichment. It might be still informational text, but in one topic they might not be interested and they might need that extra support, and in another topic they might need enrichment because, oh my gosh, we're talking about the solar system and I love the solar system, right? So again, it's important to note that this is not a program. These are just supports within the classroom on a day-to-day for students that need it and during the regular classroom instruction. So tier 2 is provided targeted short-term supports for students who need more than the core classroom instruction to meet their academic, behavior, or social emotional expectations. Tier 3, this is intensive support. Tier 3 is individualized academic intervention or enrichment. It's based on, sometimes it can be based on an action plan created by the NJTSS committee in partnership with teachers and families. Increased frequency or duration of the intervention sessions, in class, 1-to-1 or very small group instruction, maybe 2, max 3. Individual behavior or SEL support plans. Key features of Tier 3, it's highly individualized and student specific. It's frequent progress monitoring. It's ongoing review by the school's NJTSS team, and it's consistent parent communication. Note Tier 3 supports are still part of the general education and NJTSS framework. Tier 3 does not automatically mean special education, but it does not prevent an evaluation either. Tier 3 provides that intensive individual support for a small number of students who continue to need additional assistance despite the Tier 1 and Tier 3 supports. So here you may see it's still done in the classroom, but here our teacher, and we'll talk about how the referral or the request for assistance is done in the next slides, but they have progress monitored. They've noted that there has been interventions that are still not supporting the student, are still not being helpful, or not enough. And they now, or enrichment, the students is still accelerating or still needs more. And maybe the teacher is not sure how other ways to enrich, so they can come together to the NJTSS committee, and we'll talk about who's involved in that committee to get that additional support. Through there, an action plan can in fact be created. An intervention plan can be created for students that need more intensive intervention that the teachers will then take to their classrooms after having a problem-solving type of meeting with the NJTSS committee. And I'll talk more about that again, like when we get to that slide. And the same thing for enrichment. A student may need an action plan, an enrichment action plan, or a gifted action plan. We'll talk about that later. So what are the academic data collection tools that our teachers are using? So this is just a visual of an overview of the different things. I mean, there's so many different types of formative assessments that we do. It's more like an ongoing check. So you might have students that, I mean, teachers that use exit tickets or observations from just watching the student not participating, or when they did that partner activity, the one student was maybe not participating as much. It's just a way to just take the pulse of the class or the student's level of understanding on the spot. Right. So it's sometimes they do it with a do now, which is like immediately when they get started on the lesson, it's a quick one question task. And right off the bat, like, ooh, sometimes it's like it's a prerequisite. And if the student doesn't know the prerequisite, then they may struggle already with the core. So the teacher's just more mindful of that. And that begins that differentiation within the classroom instruction. That's where you might see, oh, this student seems to be struggling with visualizing the fraction. So as I'm teaching this lesson today, let me grab fraction tiles from the student so that as we're doing the core instruction, they can use the visualization manipulatives to help guide their understanding. So formative assessments are used constantly every day, and teachers sometimes use post-its to kind of make tallies to kind of tally. If it's behavioral, it's how many times does the student, want to get up and move? How many times do they want to go to the bathroom? Are they tired? So it's also sometimes just behavioral observations of the teacher as well. Does a student work better with another student, a particular student in a class? Does the student have particular conflict with another student? So it's really just understanding, taking the pulse of the class on that spot. Then we have diagnostic tools. So you may have heard of your students taking a diagnostic tool like the IXL diagnostic or the iReady diagnostic. One of the screeners that we used was if you have a K-3 student, we had the New Jersey's literacy mandate that came through that provided us an opportunity to screen all our students through our magnetic iReady program. And that provided us a tiered where our students were. Were they one grade below, 2 grades? Where are their strengths, right? Because also it's important to know that certain content has different domains. So again, your children may be very good at geometry, but not so good in number sense, right? So geometry is very visual at the lower grades, so they probably can see it, understand it better. But the good thing about these programs like iExcel or iReady is that it really tiers for the teacher the skills, the students that need to receive that level of support, and it also provides the teacher with recommendations so that the students can also use during small group instruction or during that independent learning time. At the high school level, students may be about to learn about the Pythagorean theorem, and they're struggling with understanding the properties of a triangle. So that's very important as a prerequisite to that Pythagorean theorem. So that might be something the teacher then says, let's do some small group reinforcement real quick. So that way, when you are learning the core instruction, you're ready for that tomorrow. So that's, again, tier 2 and tier 3. And then we have our summative assessments that are usually like a final review of what the students know. It can come as far as like a state assessment, right? The NJSLA. It could be final exams in the high school classrooms. It could be end of chapter units. It could be end of unit tests, which is sometimes multiple chapters. Here, these assessments are more, did they learn the objectives, the standards of their grade successfully, and either through grade level expectations or even exceeding. So these are the different types of academic collection tools that we use. And when a teacher now comes to requesting for assistance, they will provide this information for us so that the NJTSS committee can make an informed decision or interventions or enrichment. So how is a student referred, if you will, to the NJTSS team? We used to call it referral, but we really like to say request for assistance, right? Because what we're really doing is providing the teacher in the classroom interventions or enrichment strategies for the students. So it may start with the teacher collecting data first for 6 to 8 weeks, and that is part of the administration code. To make sure that they have tried different various levels of tier 1 instruction. So tier 1 instruction is crucial, and we're working on really strengthening our professional development on tier 1 instruction, because that is really the foundation of how we support our students. We really need to know that tier one must be flexible for all learners, right? So, and when a teacher starts to see that there may be a need, that's where the progress monitoring has to begin. So we're still supporting our teachers as we're developing and strengthening our own NJTSS framework, the way we use it in our district. So with that, we're just continuing, and I'll speak to the professional development a little bit later in the slides. So the teacher or even a parent, if you're seeing the student is struggling or may need more enrichment, or you're thinking that that's where you want, I'm not sure, it feels like they're struggling, but are they not? I feel like my student is really doing great. Like, can I request assistance from the NJTSS team? So there is a referral form that you would fill out, but I'm gonna, for the sake of this presentation, this is how the teachers do it, but a parent can also fill out the referral or the request for assistance, and the person that you would contact, and I'll show you the different members of the team, would be your assistant principal, as they are the chair of the NJTSS committees for your school. So the referral comes into the NJTSS committee. The committee, in the next slide, you'll see who makes up the committee, but it's different different members of the school with different expertise. They have a collaborative meeting where they really talk about the different data that the teacher will bring with them, whatever, whether it be the formative assessments that they have, the progress monitoring that they conducted, the scores on the NGSLA, if it's a graded student where the grade is an NGSLA is provided to that grade, or any form of just observation notes, anything that they can say, here's what I've done, and here's why I feel I still need something different to help support the instruction and the support for my student. So there's a collaborative meeting that takes place. And parents are also invited to these meetings when this is taking place, so that, because true partnership comes with the parent as well. And the parents may receive a document, like, kind of tell us a little bit about your child, because sometimes at home they're different than they are in school, right? At home, there might be only like 4 of you or 5 of you, or maybe just 2 of you, right? So in school, there's 25 kids, so maybe they're shy, or maybe they just get distracted by that many kids, or they're like very social and they just want to interact with friends rather than sit and do the work, right? So there's so many things that your knowledge of your child can bring to that meeting, so you're also invited to that meeting. Together, you would develop, the committee will develop and implement a plan that's SMART goals, right? So they're measurable, they're specific, and it's not the all in all solving the problem or the concern. What it is, it's like, let's do some more intensive intervention or intensive enrichment, and let's progress monitor that. It's more specific, and again, it's collaborative. It would be different than what the teacher has already tried. Then, of course, we have progress monitoring. Again, to the administration code, we should, any intervention should be tried for 6 to 8 weeks, to make sure if it's done with fidelity, to make sure that sometimes if you, after a day or two, well, it didn't work, that might just be too preliminary, like it's too, so it's not enough time to really create a change. So the state recommends a 6 to 8 progress monitoring of those interventions. Then there's they reconvene, they evaluate and determine future action. Did this work? Okay, now let's try these interventions. If it didn't, let's try these enrichments if it didn't. And it's a continuous cycle. However, like I was saying before, specifically if it's for the intervention side, then it might be a referral then to the child study team. And all that information that the teacher has collected, that the team has then done, will go to the child study team, so that way they can really determine, make a determination based on the data. They could really try to understand the student. They have good information for that IEP meeting or the determination meeting, right? And if the student then does need an IEP, or a 504, which I'll talk about the difference in the next slide, then from there, they already have some data. So they don't try the same thing and then the teacher's like, oh, but I did that already, So we want to make sure that everyone's aware of all the progress monitoring that has been done. And the same thing for the on the enrichment side, the student might receive an enrichment action plan. Often we see in reading, a student can read, very well, but it's the understanding of critical thinking questions, the comparisons a little bit more in depth. That might be the intervention they need to really just make those connections. In math, students are sometimes can just do calculations well. They figure out patterns, and math is very big on patterns, but do they know how to apply it to real life application, making those real connections, incorporating into other interdisciplinary lessons. Like a lot of times math and science can go together, right? Reading and social studies and different connections. So they would get an enrichment plan to kind of start seeing how we can enrich the student. And again, if after enrichment has been done, then the opposite, kind of like an IEP, would be a GAP, which is a gifted action plan. And that would now require more intense, smart goals that will really help target where the student is and how to develop the student as a whole. Again, we have to consider the whole entire student. So where are they socially, academically, behaviorally? And if everything is where it needs to be, then we continue to create that specific plan. And again, it should be ongoing, and we're working on that. Again, we're still working on developing our NJTSS committees to really strengthen our teams. Tons of professional development is being provided. The hard part is the time, right? So we're just trying to make sure that we're constantly looking at the NJTSS teams. We at the central office receive all the referrals, and we're looking for patterns, and we're looking to ways to support our district leaders as well as our teachers. And I'll talk about the professional development. So this is how the process goes. Who is on the NJTSS teams? So in our elementary and middle school level, we have building administration. It's the assistant principal, but it could be the principal's designee, but it's usually the assistant principal in our district. It is currently. Our high school is led by our lead guidance counselor, which is really our director of guidance, which is Dr. Antone. And then other team members will include a special education teacher, an academic intervention teacher for Title I schools. We'll talk about that a little bit further down in the other slides. General education teacher, but we consider including all grade bands. So it's not just, first grade teacher on the team. We want maybe a K2 teacher, a 3-5 teacher, a 6-8 at the middle school, teachers of different grades, because they have a wealth of knowledge, especially when it comes to enrichment. A third grade teacher, fourth grade teacher might tell a first grade teacher, oh, the trajectory of that strand or that domain in math, for example, would be this. How have you tried these kind of tasks, right? And so they share best practices with each other. A specialist teacher. The specialist teachers, like physical education teachers, our music teachers, our art teachers, they get to know the students on such a deeper level sometimes, because it's really where the kids get to be who they are, and they express themselves through music or through art or through kinesthetic intelligence, which is phys ed. So having a specialist teacher, they always have such a wonderful lens on the student, and they've known them sometimes from kindergarten through 5th grade, right? Because they have them every year. So a specialist teacher always brings like such a wealth of knowledge, and they too will give different ways to like that special information of that student. This student really loves this. So how can we connect that to their learning, right? They really love the solar system. So how do we connect then different activities they can do for enrichment based on the solar system, right? The non-child study team social worker can sometimes be involved if it's an emotional social concern, right? If students are struggling. We have social work interns in some of our schools. So really getting their perspective and really just how can we support the students emotionally, right? So they're part of the team. Our child study team transition coordinator, this is more for our high school. They're involved on the team as well. And the student assistant counselors, that's more middle school and high school, but they're part of the team. And then there's other members that are deemed appropriate that should be invited depending on the need. School nurse, right? If it's a medical concern. Related services provider, speech, OT, PT. Maybe there's something that they can help with help with the team. Often in the lower grades, it might be like OT, occupational therapists may give some suggestions. Maybe it's just a developmental thing. It's not necessarily where they would need an occupational therapist, but maybe some different ways like slant the paper or how to break a paper into sections for a student. But again, wealth of knowledge if needed. An ML teacher, right? Multilingual teacher. If it is one of our students that is from another country, sometimes it's just a language barrier. So maybe helping them help us understand different ways to help support a student that's multilingual. It's important to have them. ESS coordinator is more for the high school. That's more of a social emotional support group. And then of course, this one's not as whenever, it's always important to invite the parent or guardian. They're always invited to the INRS or NJTSS team meetings. However, it's important to know that parents do not have to be there. These interventions occur all the time, but I've never had a situation parent would not come or a family member or, guardian would not show up. They're always invited and welcome to join us. Again, this is very important, and we're emphasizing that at the school level, that parents are such a huge part, and we must partner with the families because you are the true experts of your children. So one of the things we often see, and even in the survey, was what are the different systems of support, if you will. So I created this visual for you. So what is NJTSS and action plan, and what's a 504 action plan, and what's an IEP? So it's different. So I wanted to come here and kind of really show you this. So the purpose is for NJTSS is really just general education interventions. That does not mean that a student with an IEP is not part of the tiered system of supports. Of course, in the classroom, they can be. We have students that have an IEP that are twice exceptional. So they have enrichment needs. So they are definitely part of that tier 2 enrichment or tier 3 enrichment, or often can have a gifted action plan, but still have a special education diagnosis or an IEP for something else. So it's just important to note that. Again, NJTSS is general education interventions. So just note that every student receives these supports in the general education classrooms. Then you have the 504 action plan, which is more for equal access accommodations. The legal basis, so NJTSS is supported by New Jersey Administration Code. 504, it's supported by the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, and IEPs are part of the IDEA. It's a federal law. Eligibility for NJTSS is no formal diagnosis is required, just concerns, right? For that particular objective, standard, lesson, grade level. For 504, disability that impacts major life activities, and IEP would fall for someone that has one of the 14 IDEA disabilities. The type of plan you receive on NJTSS would be an NJTSS intervention action plan, or an NJTSS enrichment action plan, or NJTSS GAP, which is gifted action plan. A 504 is a 504 action plan, accommodation plan. That's done through a different committee. And of course, IEPs are an individualized education plan for each student that has one of these disabilities. The services provided are that tiered system of supports for NJTSS, or 504 has more of accommodations and accessibility for the students to be able to access the classroom learnings. And then IEP is more specialized instruction, and they have related services that really support our beautiful students. And then the review would be frequent monitoring at the NJTSS level. Again, that's 6 to 8 week cycle. It's important to know, I forgot to mention before, that a person that's referred to the NJTSS team and has an actual action plan will receive a case manager, and they could be one of the members of the team where they touch base with the teacher, just in case we don't want to wait 6 to 8 weeks. So I encourage my committees to do a check-in every 3 weeks or so before the 6-week intake. So at the 3rd week level, just say, hey, how's it going? Maybe a little tweaking may be done. So this way, it's just we don't want to wait if it's really not working at all. So it's really being actively monitoring that the teacher's doing. And then the 504 is an annual review that's done through the 504 committee, and so is the The IEP, also done annual or sometimes every 3 years for the full review. The due process, right, is limited rights because again, it's just what happens in the classroom is just tiered instruction where there are parent rights for a 504 action plan and family rights, as well as in the IEP, there's definitely safeguards and parent rights as well, where NJTSS, again, it's just supporting the classroom. So I did include the different types at the bottom of what we, the legal bases that we're led by. So if you wanted to look those up for just more intense detail, please feel free to do so. I just wanted to make sure that I gave you kind of an overview. So what are NJTSS implementation features that we're currently doing? So one of the big things is we're still developing and strengthening this type of support and framework. Again, for many years, the state of New Jersey had INRS, and now recently they've really tried to push this NJTSS model. And I've been working for the last 2 or 3 years with Ms. Botner on really strengthening how to really have a cohesive approach at the district level. I know some of you may be familiar with our Fergus report where it stated that each school was kind of doing something different a few years ago, and it was creating a lot of mixed messaging and on the supports were being delivered differently. So we really wanted to kind of bring it all together and make sure that everyone's involved. So we're currently also in the development of a district NJTSS committee for that extra support, which will involve various teachers, specialists, administrators, parents will be asked to be part of a committee. We may send out a survey in the future for that if anyone's interested, to really help us plan and develop and strengthen these interventions that we are providing. So the district and school leaders will ensure success by providing ongoing professional development, allocating resources for instructional support, and promoting a shared vision for equity and inclusivity. That's always at our forefront. We also partner with our school board, and they've been such an extreme support for us, especially at the curriculum and instruction committee. We share all our thoughts and just how we can then brainstorm together. And it's just been so great to partner with our Board of Ed members also to really support, all our research. This is like a passion project for me. For the last 3 years, really have dove in. I've joined the New Jersey Association of Gifted Children, Intervention Manager Central, really looking at the whole child. Personally, I have a child that is autistic, and he receives out of district placement, not in this community, but in my hometown, because he has high needs. And he's a 14-year-old. And then I have the other side of the spectrum. My daughter's a senior, and she is a gifted student. That also has a 504, has some social emotional needs, and so I've been through the whole spectrum. So just diving in as a parent, but also as a lifetime educator of 24 years, I really do love that I partnered with Ann Botner, because together as curriculum instruction, we really have seen the need for that individualized instruction, but also support for the students that has been kind of mismatched or worked in silos. So we're really trying to streamline. We meet with our supervisors every week. We meet with our administrators every month, or bi-weekly. So we meet every month with our Board of Education, and now we're starting these curriculum nights. So we really are trying to wrap that leadership support around the whole system of the New Jersey Tier System of Support framework that we are adopting here that we have adopted here in our district. Ongoing training is super important as our students change, the needs change, right? So NJTSS teams will have that ongoing access to effective training so that all team members know what accurate implementation looks like and can carry out these key implementation actions in their own schools. So we have a new system called Link It, and it's in our intervention management system that will have all our intervention strategies, our enrichment strategies. It will allow for parents to have I know you've seen a summary of your student profile to see all the different academic or data collection we have done on students, that like just the profile of the student. Where are we with this student? What else do they need? Do they need enrichment? Do they need intervention? So really having our NJTSS teams trained on how to monitor that progress monitoring, how to support the teachers. Our teachers are our heroes. They really are. And if you're a teacher watching, you know you're at full teacher capacity. There's such a spectrum of learners in your classrooms and in our classrooms as well. So we're really trying to, how do we streamline all that, right? How do we come with, instead of working in silos, how do we get support from special education? How do we get support from community members, parents? How do we streamline all these different interconnected systems that we already have and maximize it for the benefit of our students and families? And one of the key thing is teacher professional development. So our district has been committed to strengthening our NJTSS implementation. So we've wanted to provide that ongoing professional development. So Mr. Bing created a professional development committee in our district, and they spoke about 5 buckets that were really important to them as educational leaders, right? So 2 of those 3 buckets are really targeted to support them with NJTSS implementation. One being tier 1 instruction, right? That again is like the foundation of all instruction, of all our instruction, really making sure that we're maximizing high quality instruction with our tier 1, right? So one of the main buckets is that. So every professional development opportunity will have tier 1 instruction strategies and supports. Every department meeting by our supervisors will host for our teachers tier 1 instruction supports, right? Different ideas, different ways to strengthen that tier 1. We also are having our teachers and our teacher leads create different like hubs for teachers to reach out and grab some support. So maybe like a gifted instruction, a hub, so that teachers can pull different supports, an intervention hub, so that the teachers can look up different supports that they may need at their fingertips, right? And then the other bucket is, so there's a tier 1 bucket that for PD, and then the other one's that tier 2 and tier 3 instruction. You know, what can that look like? How do we organize it? How can the teacher progress monitor efficiently? Because it is a lot that falls on the teacher, because they're the one that provides the instruction. And again, the instruction is what needs to be tiered, and the support is what needs to be tiered, not the students. So targeted interventions and data-informed decision-making also goes through all our professional development. Just so you know, I'm going to plug our next presentation for that's coming out of our office, or one of them is we're having Dr. Matt Zagretsky, which is for Giftedness 101, and he's a well-renowned speaker. He speaks for New Jersey Association of Gifted Children and also the National Association of Gifted Children, because we've heard parents want more information. We want to learn more. So we have invited him to do a webinar for parents, and that's coming February 10th. You'll hear more information. Stay tuned. But again, it's us trying to find different avenues to support the teachers, the parents, and us as district leaders wrap around that support. I want to just check the time, make sure, okay, I'm wrapping up. So again, how do all these supports work together? We have students with unmet needs. We want that early identification. We want to recognize the students' need promptly, right in that formative assessment, right on the spot, bring them into a small group, and then start that data-informed decision-making. The diagnostics that we do 3 times a year provide a report, so make sure the teachers pull that into their planning time. And then that responsive support, adjust the supports based on the student progress, not just say, well, this student always needs tier 3 support, so we're just going to label them a tier 3 student. That's not how this works. This is more based on the students, the level of support, the intensity of the support, right? That family partnership, I cannot emphasize more that I value family partnership. I love to meet with parents and really collaborate with you. I took just the visual, I took the survey and I went and highlighted all different fashions of this survey to make sure that I'm really taking into account everything you're saying. And I bring it to Ms. Bodner. We kind of brainstorm, and that's what we're doing with the surveys that you are providing. Please know we are reading them. We are taking notes to just make sure that at the end of the day, the students are blooming, their needs are being met with that targeted support. So here's some of the NJTSS survey Q&A I found. It was one of these are some of that were kind of like always being asked. So I figured I just added to this slide. But again, I see that Ms. Bonner's been answering questions, and if you need more or to learn more, or if you're interested in being part of I'll put another plug for the NJTSS District Committee. Please send me an email. I would love to partner with parents, although we may send a survey, like I said. But see, here are some of your questions. How are students identified? Classroom data, the universal screeners, teacher observation, and obviously parent concerns. If you have a concern, please make sure you bring it to us. No, parents do not need to wait for the schools to notice. Parents can request assistance from the NJTSS committee at any time. Again, the person you would reach out to, I would start with the classroom teacher, and it kind of further answers down there. So I'll wait to get to that part. Communication and follow-up. Parents can expect notification when supporting begins through an action plan. Clear goals. They're SMART goals, they're measurable, progress updates, closure on next step communication. And I know that a lot of parents have expressed concerns with that. We are really working on making sure, again, that we are strengthening that partnership with parents and the communication. So I know some parents said that even it's not enough to have it on videos, but also send out through PTAs, through handouts, through emails, through newsletters. We heard you, and we will be doing that. I know on Parents Night, for the November Parent Night, we sent, or December Parent Night, I believe it was, we sent flyers on what NJTSS was, but it may have gotten lost, but maybe be more intentional. But again, we hear you, and even the consideration of translating them. Thank you. Yes, you're absolutely right. NJTSS and special education. Important clarifications. NJTSS is not a replacement for special education. Parents can request an evaluation at any time. NJTSS does not delay IEP considerations. It is helpful. I want to say that if we do go through the process, it is helpful because then again, the IEP team can then have all this rich data from the teacher observations and the intense interventions that came from a collaborative meeting. So just know that. But again, you're the parent and you have the right to ask at any time for a special education evaluation. Advanced learners and enrichment. Support includes enrichment acceleration, not just remediation. So NJTSS supports the full range of learners. We are working to improve clarity around enrichment pathways and additional teacher support in this area. We do understand that maybe teachers are struggling with enrichment or just need more support. So we are providing that. We're trying to get more professional development for teachers. I myself am doing one for our next professional development schedule for our teachers. We have some outside presenters, and as well as through other ways that we provide professional development for our teachers. But we are really working to strengthen that area as well. Who to contact? Again, first steps would probably be the classroom teacher, because she knows, or they know your student best in the classroom perspective of the academic school year. You could also, if you have a good partnership or relationship with your school social worker, if it's more emotional, please reach out to your school social worker, counselor, and of course your building administrator, either the principal or the assistant principal. The assistant principals are the chair of the committee. However, the principal will gladly receive that request for assistance and send it over to the assistant principal and the NJTSS team. And then why some schools retain intervention teachers. This was a very big questions on the survey. And it's just important to know, first and foremost, it is important to clarify that intervention teachers are not directly aligned to NJTSS supports. I think the name intervention teacher may seem that way, but while students who receive services for intervention teachers may also be supported by an NJTSS action plan, but they do not necessarily have NJTSS action plans. So not all students that are seen by an intervention teacher receive NJTSS action plans. It just coincidentally, they may both exist, but they don't necessarily align. Additionally, intervention teachers are assigned exclusively to Title I schools where they provide supplemental instructional support based on the student need. So currently they are just at our Title I schools in the district. So let me stop sharing. I know we're like 1 minute at a time. Whew. So I just want to thank you. And I see Ms. Bonner has definitely been answering questions, but Ms. Bonner, is there anything you want me to kind of touch base with, or I think we're good for right now?
I think I've caught up with just about everybody. We can go through the questions afterwards and once this is over and see if I've missed anyone, but I'm answering my last question now.
Yes.
And then again, if there are any questions you have when you're home just thinking about it, please feel free to reach out to us and we will try to get back to you or get a, like Dr. Correa said, get a frequently asked questions out to you.
Yes.
To give you a better sense of what's going on. But I do want to take just a quick second to thank Dr. Correa. This has, since she has moved to central office, been her labor of love on both sides and for the diamond in general. One of the first things I asked her to do is to do an audit of our gifted and talented or gifted action plans and our gap plans and our processes and procedures. And she ran with it, did a lot of research, worked with the state, reached out to the state, worked with them to make sure that we're following all protocols and implementing all the protocols that we are supposed to have. And then on the flip side, also, she and I have had many conversations about how NJTSS is the game changer for our students and how we can support them and how we can see progress. And I believe that when I was principal and assistant principal at Clinton Elementary School. And I believe it to this day that our NJTSS process, if we have a tight one and we will continuously be working on it, that it will be the game changer for our students without a doubt. And we're on our way. Dr. Correa really has dove into this work, and she's only been here with me as a director for just a couple of years. So we are continuously going to be working on this and strengthening it, seeing where we might, getting feedback from you and from our teachers to be able to continue to support and make sure that our students are getting the individual attention that they deserve and need. So
please,
thank you, Dr. Correa. That was very
welcome.
informative.
And we're going to continue to be in the classrooms. I know I just happened to see a last question there. We're doing instructional rounds with our superintendent. He's very open of the different strategies he's using. So we are going to be very much in the classrooms and continue to support our teachers. Ultimately, they're the true heroes. It really comes down to a lot is on their plate, and we're trying to really align with them and really support them. Again, this is very personal to me as well. So if you have any questions, like I said, I'm going to read through all these comments. I will create a frequently asked question for parents that I will also upload to our district page. It's ongoing work. It's hard to change in education. If you're in education, you know what I'm talking about, but we're not going to stop. We're very intentional, and we're just going to continue to hear feedback. There'll be some more surveys maybe coming around. But please, thank you for the honest feedback. Although it hurt a little sometimes, but we know we heard you, and it's true, and we need to do better, and we will continue to do that work, because that's what it's all about. It really is about every student, every time, every day. So thank you so much for tonight.